Okay, I saw this article earlier today, and I just kind of wanted to go through it because it has a lot of good information in it, and I wanted to also put in some of my insight. Okay, this is about the Nephilim. Okay, a lot of people don't know much about this topic because they've been spoon-fed a bunch of bull in the church with the sons of Seth argument regarding Genesis 6. And because the pseudepigraphia has been rejected and the deuterocanonicals, or as most Protestants call it, the Apocrypha, has been rejected, they have little knowledge of these type of topics. Okay, like for instance, the Book of Enoch talks a lot about this topic. Book of Jubilees talks about it as well. And we're going to just go over it a little bit here. Why did God destroy the earth with a flood? And why were there giants in the land when Moses had the scouts go in, like Joshua, for instance, and check out the land? We were like grasshoppers before him. And why was Noah the one chosen? Was it because he was a moral man, or was it because he was perfect in his generations or DNA? In other words, he wasn't of fallen angel hybrid. Okay? And this isn't something that just Christianity has, okay, that somehow got lost. Okay? This is stuff that's in every culture. Even the American Indians believed in star people that had 6 fingers and 6 toes. And guess what? Goliath had 6 fingers and 6 toes. It even says it in the Bible. Even the American Indians believe in this stuff, have legends of this stuff. The Greeks, the Titans were the Nephilim. Okay, all this stuff was understood as to be historical information, but it might have had legendary accounts to it. But now today it's myth. It's all made up. We're all scientifically enlightened now. You know, that's how it works, right? So in reality, what happened was the reason why God was killing off or having the Israelites kill off certain groups of people was because they weren't human. Okay, that was the whole point. And actually, I have the thing right here. All these tribes were not human in the Bible. Tribes of giants, Amalekites. You know where it says kill the infants and everybody? It's because they were Nephilim. They weren't human. They're offspring of fallen angel. And why would God want you to do that, even though they're not human and they're giant and fallen angels came down, 200 of them on Mount Hermon with their leader Azazel, or as in Revelation, Abaddon or Apollyon, the king of the bottomless pit. Okay? Because that's where he was stuck after all this happened, while his children were destroyed in the flood. Okay? Although it says right after that, even after the flood, there's some of these guys left over. King Og was one of them. Even Goliath was one of them. And the Amalekites who were killed off were also giants. And why is this the case? Well, it even says in Genesis that I will put enmity between your seed, Satan, and her seed, woman. And he shall bruise thy head, and you shall bite his heel, or something like that, right? So, it's a prophecy of Jesus coming from the seed of woman. Well, if all women are half Nephilim, well, there is no seed to save humanity, is there? No. That was the whole point of the devil trying to thwart the plan to have these kids, to thwart the whole thing of salvation. Okay? Anyway, let's get back to what we were on. So now you know why that's in the Bible. Okay? Genetically, there was nearly no difference between Satan. Actually, I wanted to read something up here he said. We will look at the reason why gods, he says gods plural because Elohim is plural in Genesis. In reality, it's pointing to the Trinity. Destroyed most living creatures in the flood. Okay. After the descent to earth on Mount Hermon, the watchers, as it says in the book of Enoch, indulged in earthly delights with their chosen wives. Okay. Now he says here, another mistake made by the church fathers and the Jews was that they forgot to erase the verse that contains stories of the gods. Angels and watchers. Maybe they could not translate these scrolls any other way. Now let me tell you what's going on there. Okay. In reality, the Septuagint has all this information in it. And there was one church that kept all the books in their canon, and that's the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Okay, they actually have the Book of Enoch in their canon. They're the only one that did. Although the Orthodox claim that they also look at the Book of Enoch as scripture as well. So, but that's the eastern side of the church. The Catholic and Protestants are the western side of the church, okay? Big difference, right? And what really happened was at the Council of Jamnia in AD 90, certain Pharisees wanted to distance themselves from Christians because the Christians were using the Greek Septuagint to convert Jews. And as you can see, when you look at the New Testament, you'll see quotes of the Old Testament from the Septuagint, which sound different when you go and read it in your English Bible today. And the reason why is because your English Bible uses the corrupted Hebrew Masoretic text, which was the product of these Pharisees who wanted to distance their Hebrew writings from the Greek ones that the Christians were using. Now, this Greek Septuagint had been around for a couple hundred years already. Jesus was familiar with it. The apostles quoted from it. It's almost like the Jews said, "Look, we got to save Judaism from Christianity. They're converting too many Jews. We got to do something about this. Let's get rid of this Greek Septuagint. Let's demonize it. Even though it's been accepted for a couple hundred years, let's get rid of it. We're going to change our Hebrew Tanakh to sound a little different. We're going to remove certain books, i.e. the Apocrypha and the Book of Enoch and all these books, and then we're going to say to these Christians in public, you changed the scriptures." Isn't that nice? So that's what happened. That's what Justin the Martyr said happened. That's what a lot of these very early church fathers said. But the later church fathers went along with the Jews and the corrupted version. That's why you don't see the Book of Enoch in the Old Testament. That's why it looks like God is a genocidal maniac, because it looks like God's killing little poor infants. In reality, they're not human. Okay? They're offspring of Satan. Literally. Okay. So that's what's going on there. And let's just go down here. This guy says he believes that the Nephilim are genetically nearly no difference between the devil's offspring and human offspring, which may or may not be the case. I think he's assuming a few things. For one, these fallen angels came from the heavenly realms, okay, and descended onto earth, Mount Hermon. When they came from the heavenly realms, they left their former estate, as the scripture says, or their former bodies, their glorious bodies, which is what we're going to have after we resurrect, these glorious bodies, right? So they left their glorious bodies to come to earth, which is a different plane of existence. And when they did so, maybe they had some ability of choosing what they would be like here. And when they did so, they were able to mate with humans. I don't know. Or it could be just the fact that God created both and they're very similar. I don't know how you want to go about it. At any rate, you could say they were also made in God's image and likeness. I don't know. And I don't want to get into that topic, but I mean, let's not get into that. Okay. When it says here in Genesis 6:2, the sons of God saw the daughters of men, a lot of people are like, whoa, sons of God, like good people, right? No, sons of God always refers to angels in the Old Testament, the Hebrew word being used there. Okay. Let's go down farther here. I can't read this whole thing. It'll probably take me like 2 hours to read it. Okay, let's see here. Now, I don't totally agree with this guy because he's kind of like a freelancer, he's not a Christian, the guy who made this, but he's trying to understand history, so he's got his own biases in here, so I'm just skipping around a little bit. He talks about Jubilees here, which talks about it. Okay, Jubilees, chapter 5, here, Book of Jubilees. And it came to pass when the children of men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, the angels of God saw them on a certain year of this Jubilee, that they were beautiful to look upon, and they took to themselves wives of all whom they chose, and they bare unto them sons, and they were giants. Same story as in the Bible, chapter 5. And the lawlessness increased in the earth, and all flesh was corrupted in its way, alike men, cattle, and beasts, and birds, and everything that walks on the earth, all of them are corrupted in their ways and orders. And they began to devour each other, and lawlessness increased in the earth, and every imagination of the thoughts of men was thus evil continually. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, and all flesh had corrupted its orders, and all that were upon the earth had wrought all manner of evil before his eyes. Okay. We read further in the Book of Jubilees. From fornication, uncleanness, and all iniquity, For owing to these things came flood upon the earth, namely owing to the fornication wherein the watchers against the law of ordinances went whoring after the daughters of men. Okay, now the term fornication is porneia. Okay, porneia in the Greek Septuagint, which is around from created in 270 BC in Egypt by 70 elders. Okay, this term porneia almost is always exclusively used to refer to idolatry with reference to sex and relationships. Okay, whenever it says don't go after strange women in the Old Testament, it's talking about women who worship a false god. And almost all the false gods in the Old Testament are these watchers, these fallen angels or offspring of the fallen angels that were demanded to be worshipped. And if you notice, they had sexual acts they did unto these false gods to mimic or mirror back to the original sin of these fallen angels. Okay, so fornication originally referred to rebellion against God. Okay, it doesn't mean sex before marriage. And I have a bunch of videos I did on my other account talking about this topic. That all these words have like changed their meanings. Okay, it starts out meaning it starts out referring basically mirroring back to the first sin of these angels, which is sex between humans and angels. Which, just like you see in Leviticus 18, 7 through 23, you see you're not supposed to have sex with animals. Okay, this is unnatural. So humans and angels are not supposed to have sex. And if you recall, in Sodom, they were going to try to rape angels. Okay, so this is how you'll notice in some of these ancient documents how it talks about Sodom mirroring this first sin. Because humans were going to try to rape angels. Because there was angels in the house, right? So sex is supposed to be within our species. Okay, that's the point. And obviously, the whole idea is not to rebel against God. So fornication is not about sex before marriage, but it's about violating your neighbor. Like not loving God, not loving your neighbor. And rebelling against God. The point is it has to do with rebellion. It's not about, can I do this sex act? Can I do this sex act? It's about, are you raping somebody? Are you sleeping with an animal? It's stuff like that. It's about loving God, loving neighbor, and not trying to rebel against God, basically. Okay, getting off that topic. And uncleanness, actually, its root history. If you look at Deuteronomy 24, it's referring to, it refers to idolatry too. I don't want to get into that. Let's not get into that. Okay, here we go. Watchers, Book of Enoch. And it came to pass when the children of men had multiplied it, in those days there were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters, and the angels of the children of heaven saw and lusted after them, and said one to another, come, let us choose wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And these are the names of the leaders. And I don't want to read it because they're kind of a pain in the butt to read these names. But there's 12 names. They're chiefs of 10. Or is it 20 names? I don't know. 12 or 20 names. There's 200 fallen angels total. In Enoch, we see the most extensive version of the same story. In chapter 4, we have already discussed it. At least 3 of the angels, children of heaven, were close relatives of the last 3 earth fathers. Okay, I don't want to get into whatever he's talking about there. The angels were named children of heaven. They were 200 and lived on top. I don't know if they lived on top of them. I don't believe that. He doesn't know what he's talking about. They descended onto Mount Hermon. They didn't live on Mount Hermon. Okay. He's probably assuming they lived on Mount Hermon, but that's not the case. They actually came from high places. Let's see here. Judgment of the Nephilim. And God saw the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and every imagination of the thoughts of their heart was evil continually. See, what these Nephilim did is they went around destroying everything. Okay? Killing everything. They even killed their own children as sacrifices unto fallen angels. So, they weren't exactly good. Okay? And, you've heard all these ghost stories and demons and all this. You know what those are? It says in the book of Enoch that when their children, these Nephilim, are destroyed in a flood, their soul, their spirit is to wander the earth. Okay, so the spirits wandering the earth, these ghosts, demons, those are the spirits of disembodied spirits of the offspring of fallen angels and humans. Okay, that's what they are. Okay, let's see here. I think that's a good for first video. I think I've got to you. I think you like what I'm talking about, don't you?